was 13 years that I decided that I was going to be a professional fighter. But I have no money, we don't have shoes.
That's the UFC heavyweight champion. No money, no shoes, no food, sleeping on concrete in Paris with the rats, and he still became the baddest man on the planet. But he ain't the only one. From a kid in California who slept by the door every night because he thought his dad was going to kill his mom, to a fighter in Brazil who showed up to Rio with $1 and slept on dirty gym mats for months, to a man who got cut from the UFC and lived in his car for 6 months without telling a soul. These are 6 fighters who came from the absolute gutter and became world champions in the most violent sport on earth. Let's get into it. First up, Francis Ngannou. And this man's story don't even sound real fam. Born in 1986 in Batié, Cameroon, Ngannou grew up in a mud-walled hut surrounded by nothing. His parents split when he was 6, and by the time he was 9 years old, he was working in sand mines, breaking his body for pennies alongside his older brother just so the family could eat. There were no gyms within 50 miles of his village, no shoes, no school supplies, no way out. But Francis had one thing nobody could take from him, a dream so ferocious it bordered on insanity. And at 22, he stopped surviving and started living. He left Cameroon and embarked on a 14-month odyssey to Europe, crossing the Sahara Desert in the back of a pickup truck with 25 other souls, all clinging to anything they could hold on to while the driver tore through sand at 80 miles an hour. He drank water contaminated with dead animals because the alternative was dying of thirst. He tried to scale barbed wire fences into Spain and still carries the scars on his hands and stomach. He attempted the ocean crossing 6 times in inflatable boats, the kind you buy at Walmart for a swimming pool, and got thrown back into the Algerian desert every time.
We had no choice. I attempted in the ocean, I fell 6 times. I tried to climb the fence, but barbed wire, it was the toughest part.
But the 7th time, that was the one. And when Ngannou finally touched European soil, he ended up on the streets of Paris, sleeping in parking garages, train stations, and under cardboard, chopping vegetables at a homeless shelter just to eat. But here's the thing that separates Francis from the rest. He wasn't broken. He was free.
When your dream is so big, it's hard to give up. And the day that we arrived in Paris, I could start that dream to become a world champion.
A chance encounter at a boxing gym led a coach named Didier Carmont to recognize his raw, terrifying potential, and MMA became his new path. By 2015, he was in the UFC. By 2021, he knocked out Stipe Miocic at UFC 260 to become the first African-born UFC heavyweight champion. From the gutters of Paris to the throne of the heaviest division on the planet. Now shift the map a few thousand miles south to the favelas of Brazil, where Jose Aldo was running a similar hustle, just trying to stay alive long enough to become somebody. Born in 1986 in Manaus, Aldo grew up in a violent slum where his bricklayer father and housewife mother could barely put food on the table. The boy dreamed of soccer, but life had other plans. When he was 17, with just $1 and a bag of clothes, he made the 1,500-mile move to Rio de Janeiro. No money, no connections, no roof. For months, Aldo slept on the dirty mats of Nova União Gym, skipping breakfast because he couldn't afford it, surviving on scraps and a shared sponsorship of 100 reais that had to stretch across everything. That gym-sleeping kid eventually became the WEC featherweight champion in 2009, and after the merger, the inaugural UFC featherweight champion in 2010, a throne he held for 1,820 consecutive days with 7 title defenses, the longest featherweight reign in UFC history. Inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2023, Aldo is living proof that sleeping on a filthy gym floor doesn't mean the floor is your ceiling. If Francis Ngannou's story is about outrunning an entire continent of despair, then Sean Strickland's story is about outrunning the demons inside his own house. Born in 1991 in Anaheim, California, Strickland didn't grow up poor in the traditional sense. He grew up terrorized. His father was an alcoholic drug addict who would come home wasted, scream at his mother until 3 in the morning, and threaten to kill her. And little Sean, he was the one standing guard.
I'd sleep under the bed, I'd sleep by the door because I thought my dad was gonna kill my mom. So
That's a child, elementary school age, taking on the role of protector in a household run by violence and fear. He described nights of his father threatening to burn his mother's face with acid while Sean clung to her leg in the kitchen. The trauma ran so deep that he would scratch holes into his own gums from anxiety. a habit that haunts him to this day.
So anyways, my dad gets on top of my mom. She says, like, I remember he said, like, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna fucking kill you tonight. Gets married.
One night, his father started strangling his mother. Sean grabbed a guitar and cracked him over the head, called the cops. His mother bailed the man out of jail the next day. That cycle of violence, the beatings, the threats, the chaos, it was the only normal Sean ever knew. School wasn't an escape either. Kicked out for hate crimes, homeschooled because his mother would have gone to jail otherwise, then kicked out again in 9th grade. Strickland never graduated anything. Not elementary, not middle school, not high. He's been open about the fact that he didn't properly learn to read until adulthood. He was a kid who never got socialized, who once described himself as being like a dog that nobody ever let people pet. Eventually, he was tossed out of the house entirely, becoming homeless and living in his car as a teenager, just another angry kid from a broken home, drifting through the system with nowhere to land. He fell into a pseudo-white supremacist phase, not out of ideology, but out of pure, channeled rage fueled by a racist grandfather who was the only masculine figure in his orbit. Then, around 14, somebody put him in a gym, and on the very first day, he got the absolute tar beaten out of him. Blood everywhere. And for the first time in his entire miserable life, he felt something he'd never known before.
I tell people the first day I trained, I got the shit kicked out of me, covered in blood, bro. Like, first moment in my life I ever felt happiness.
That revelation, that violence could be structured, therapeutic, purposeful, saved his life. Because without it, Strickland has been open about where he'd be, in a prison cell or in the ground. He turned pro in 2008, joined the UFC in 2014, and in September 2023, pulled off one of the biggest upsets in middleweight history by outpointing Israel Adesanya at UFC 293. After the win, in a moment of pitch-black irony only Strickland could deliver, he thanked his abuser. The streets didn't make Strickland a champion, but surviving them made him unkillable. And if you think that story is hard to swallow, wait until you hear about the former college wrestler who was one blown shoulder away from sleeping in his car permanently. Chris Weidman, the All-American boy who was supposed to have it all figured out. A standout wrestler from Baldwin, New York, Weidman looked like the textbook success story on paper. But behind the scenes, life was falling apart at the seams. After college, money dried up. Then Hurricane Sandy destroyed his home. A torn labrum required shoulder surgery, leaving him unable to work. His coach, the legendary John Danaher, described Weidman as financially completely bankrupt and essentially homeless heading into his title shot against the greatest middleweight of all time, Anderson Silva. Danaher was lending him thousands of dollars just to keep camp alive. The man was so broke he was financing a dog while barely able to feed himself. This wasn't a man training for glory. This was a man fighting with his entire existence on the line. Every single chip pushed to the center of the table on one roll of the dice. Win and his family eats. Lose and it was back to the streets with nothing but a blown-out shoulder and a mountain of debt. And at UFC 162, the universe paid out. Weidman knocked Anderson Silva out cold, ending a 16-fight win streak that most people believed was untouchable. He defended that belt 3 times, becoming one of the most improbable champions in UFC history. From bankrupt and homeless to the man who slayed the unslayable, a real-life Rocky Balboa, except this version doesn't have a Hollywood ending written in advance. He earned every single frame of that story with blood, debt, and sheer refusal to stay down. Now, not every fighter on this list was sleeping under bridges or dodging border patrol. Some of them waged wars against enemies you can't see. Poverty so crushing it breaks your spirit before your body, or diseases that try to rob you of the one thing you were born to do. Charles Oliveira never experienced literal street homelessness, but his origin story is just as savage. Born in 1989 in the Vicente de Carvalho favela in Guarujá, Brazil, Oliveira grew up in a one-room home with parents who couldn't read or write. His mother cleaned houses. His father recycled trash. Charles and his brother sold recyclables and food on the streets just to keep the lights on. If they even had lights. They didn't have shoes.
Na realidade, Fernando, a gente morava... Eu nunca morei dentro de uma favela. Morei 2, 3 ruas de uma favela. Minha mãe e meu pai não sabem nem ler nem escrever. Meu pai sabe bem pouco.
And just when it seemed like poverty was the worst hand the universe could deal this kid, at 7 years old, rheumatic fever struck. Crippling pain, heart murmurs, and a doctor's prognosis that said he might never walk again, let alone play sports. They told his mother to prepare for a child who would be paralyzed. But Oliveira's mother refused to accept that fate. She put him in every sport she could find: swimming, judo, karate, anything to keep him away from the streets where friends were dying or going to prison. At 12, he found jiu-jitsu and everything clicked. He became São Paulo champion in 2 months, walking miles through the rain to train because his family couldn't afford bus fare.
Infelizmente, alguns morreram, outros estão presos.
Oliveira would go on to become the UFC lightweight champion in 2021 at UFC 262, holding records for the most submissions and most finishes in UFC history. The kid who doctors said would never walk again became the most prolific finisher the lightweight division has ever seen. He walks out to title fights with the words "Favela to the world" stitched across his shorts, a permanent reminder of where the journey started. And finally, we arrive at a fighter whose story might be the most underappreciated redemption arc in all of combat sports. Impa Kasanganay, a name that most casual fans know only for one thing: being on the wrong end of Joaquin Buckley's viral spinning back kick knockout in 2020, a clip that racked up millions of views and turned Kasanganay into a punchline overnight. The son of Congolese immigrants, Kasanganay earned a degree in finance and accounting from Lenoir Rhine University before pivoting to MMA at 24. He signed with the UFC in 2020, but after the Buckley KO and another loss, he was released. Just like that, dream over, or so it seemed. What nobody knew was that after being cut, Kasanganay's life completely unraveled. He spent 6 months living in his car outside Killcliff FC gym in Florida, parking in the lot every night so nobody would see him, waking at 5:30 a.m. to sneak inside, shower, and train before anyone realized he was sleeping out front.
Got distracted with life, right? I was in the UFC. I thought I was going to be there for a while. 3 months later, I get cut after my last fight.
He didn't tell his family. He didn't tell his friends. He worked as a bar back on weekends, drove to Naples to train when he could, and ordered groceries via Instacart to the gym parking lot so he could eat in his front seat. When the gym security noticed his car was always there, his coach Henry Hooft pulled him aside and asked the question Impa had been dreading.
My family and friends didn't know. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't.
Wow.
There's no need to make excuses, right? Like, you got to own it.
And own it he did. After the car, then a teammate's couch, then a farm in the Everglades, Kasanganay clawed his way into the PFL Challenger Series, fought his way through the 2023 season, and won the light heavyweight tournament championship and $1 million check by defeating Joshua Silveira at PFL 10. From a viral knockout meme to a millionaire champion, sleeping in a car one year, holding a title belt and a 7-figure check the next. That's not a comeback. That's a resurrection. These 6 fighters proved that the octagon doesn't care where you slept last night. It doesn't care if you crawled out of a parking garage in Paris, a car in Florida, or a favela in Brazil. The cage is the great equalizer, the one place on earth where your bank account, your zip code, and your last name mean absolutely nothing. All it cares about is what you're willing to sacrifice when that door closes behind you. And for these men, they'd already sacrificed everything long before they ever set foot inside the octagon, which meant they had nothing left to fear and everything to prove.